Welcome to Interfere. My name is Eric Evans, and this is my show, and it will be pertaining to addiction. And if you're going to talk about addiction, we also must talk about recovery, how to recover from addiction. Now, unlike most shows regarding addiction and recovery, what we will not be doing on this show is telling you a whole bunch of war stories about how bad it was out there. I think anyone who's been involved with addiction already has a very good comprehension of what the past was like. I also believe that family members and significant others of addicts and alcoholics also know how bad it was. So I would prefer to leave that stuff behind. This is a show meant to educate both the addict and the alcoholic, but it is also there to help educate and guide their loved ones and their family members. I believe it's imperative that when we ask addicts and alcoholics to make some gigantic life changes, that we also take that opportunity to take a look at what we as the supporting cast can change about how we interact with the addict and alcoholic. So this will be a full encompassing show about addiction and how it manifests into human beings, and also about recovery, which is the answer to addiction, what we need to change and what we need to do. So one of the things that I'd like to talk about today in this particular show being episode 0, because what I'm going to be doing from time to time is I'm going to have guests on. Sometimes I'll be here by myself. I have been clean and sober for over 31 years. I have a business that has to do with addiction and recovery. I own an IOP in Thousand Oaks, California, which is an intensive outpatient. But I also am a professional recovery and addiction personal coach. And what that means is that oftentimes I'll be hired by either the addict alcoholic or their family members to assist as a first or last ditch effort to help their loved ones. Most of my past clients have been people that have gone through detox and residential treatment several times and have not been able to achieve any type of sobriety or clean time for any length of time. What I do that's different than what most people do is I have the uncanny ability to listen to another addict or alcoholic and to be able to identify where the disconnect is. Because what addicts and alcoholics are really struggling with is that they see life a certain way. Usually it is based on what they intended to do, but the world will actually judge them by what they actually do. So you have the contradiction of what I intended to do as an addict, and then the world and my family will view me by what I actually did. And those things are not the same. And so you'll get this animosity. Most oftentimes I'll hear addicts say things like, I don't know why everybody's pissed off at me. I'm doing the best I can. And I try really, really hard. But on the other side of that, you can hear the family say, this is what he or she does all the time. They start out okay, and then somewhere along the way, they go back to the way that they were, and it just creates this unmanageability in everyone's life. Now, the supporting cast can walk away if they want to, and then the addict's unmanageability won't affect them to the degree that it affects themselves. But what does the addict do when they can't walk away from themselves? Because wherever they go, there they are, right? I believe that addicts and alcoholics could be helped because I myself have been in recovery for over 31 years without a relapse. And I am still a part of the recovery community, the 12-step community. And I have found a way that works for me, and more importantly, I have found a way that will work for you. Unfortunately, insurance does not cover for this type of individual service, but for those people that have the means, if you have run into a stumbling block in your life and you just can't seem to find your footing, I can help you with that. If you're a family member or a significant other who can't seem to navigate through the maze of having an active addict in your life, I also work with family members, and that has nothing to do with the addict. That's just you and I working together, where I can correct some of your behaviors and give you some insight on how to look at an old familiar problem with a new set of lenses. I think that's what's most important. So let's jump right into this. And the first thing that I want to talk about today is give you a little insight on the mind of the addict. I think that we could both agree that if any human being on this planet was to walk around with a gigantic flag, a large flag, and on that flag it said, "I'm always right," I think we would all find it a bit preposterous to watch this person walking through the streets of our towns holding this gigantic flag that says, "I'm always right." But how many times have you ran into people in your life that actually portray that ideology, but that are just not holding the flag, right? So when you encounter people, and most of the time with addicts, this is really a significant thing, they walk around always feeling that what they think and what they believe and how they see things is actually the way that it is. Maybe consciously they're not saying, "I'm always right," but in their minds, they can never second guess that false ideology that they have that, hey, what I'm doing is right. What I am is a victim of circumstance. What I am is a victim of misunderstandings. What I am is a victim of just good old-fashioned bad luck. Everything I do or touch, for some reason, goes astray. And so they feel like they're walking around and they're snake bit, when in reality, that's not the truth. When in reality, if they had someone in their lives like me, who can gently yet firmly interfere in their way of thinking and give them an alternative way to look at the same old thing, maybe we would have a breakthrough there. Now, what makes me qualified to do this work? Well, number one, I was once as blind as they were, so there is that common thread. Number two, I've been clean and sober for over 31 years. And number three, I'm sensitive to how they feel. I know what they're thinking. I know what they're feeling. And I know that if there's even a little bit of willingness, using compassionate truth and sometimes firm truth, I will be able to have a minor breakthrough. Even a crack in the door with most addicts is an excellent way to introduce a new way of thinking or a new ideology. I remember the first time someone shared with me why I was having so many relationship issues in my addiction with people. And he shared with me that, "Listen, Eric, what you're doing is you have the best intentions. You always have. And you mean to do well. And so for you, you predominantly will judge yourself by those intentions. But what actually happens are the opposite of your good intentions. And the outside world judges you by what actually played out. And what played out was usually the opposite of what I intended to do. And so there was this organically grown misunderstanding between me and my loved ones. These were the people that were helping me the most, but I also felt like they were out to kind of get me because they didn't understand. What I didn't understand was simply that I was being judged for what I did, not for what I intended to do. And that was a gigantic revelation for me early on in my recovery. One of the other things that was very instrumental for me in changing my reality was that I always needed to be right over being well. It was very difficult for me to admit when I was wrong, because now looking back at those days, I was wrong about a lot of things. I just couldn't find my way in this life. And it was no wonder that before I got into recovery, that I loved drugs and alcohol so much, because they gave me a place to go where I felt safe, where I felt like nobody was judging me. It was a place that I could go to rest my soul. But over time, what I realized was that what was once giving me this rest and this feeling of comfort had slowly turned on me, and it had become a secondary major issue on top of the initial issue that I had of not knowing how to live life. I know what addiction does to families. I know that if you're a wife or a husband of an addict, I know that every waking moment for you is literally a living hell, especially if you add kids to that equation. I know that if you're a parent, this is also a living hell for you. Most of our seniors today are still taking care of their kids well into their 30s, 40s, 50s, some even into their 60s, because they refuse to let go, because they love their children so much. But it's misplaced love. It's not being conveyed in the proper way, and it is actually doing more harm than it is good. But when you don't know what to do and you have no outlet for fresh information, your parental instincts will continue to drive you to do the very thing that doesn't help anymore. Just like the drugs turned on the addict, your help has now turned on you, because the more you do, the worse things get. And that's really the reason why I went into professional private coaching with addicts and with their family members. It's not an accident that you're watching this now. And what I didn't want this show to be about is about a couple of addicts sitting behind a camera talking about how much drugs they had done and who did the worst stuff and who used more drugs. And I'm not about that. I want to give you some answers to the things that are destroying your life and the life of your loved ones. So I hope that you will take advantage of this opportunity. I hope that you follow this channel. I hope that you like this channel, that you share this channel. I hope that you reach out through email, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. And I want you to know that I will always give you the right information based on my 31 years of experience in recovery and in working with addicts and alcoholics. So thank you for watching this, and we are going to be posting new episodes every week. I invite you to be here, and I'm so glad that you're here now. Thank you.